Here's a little mini quilt, and I'm going to show you how to bind the edges. You need some fabric. This is a full width of fabric that I've folded up, and I will cut a strip from the end here. The strip's going to be 2.5 inches wide. And I will just trim off the selvage edges. Then we will go to the ironing board and iron this strip in half all the way along its length. The right side is on the outside. And there we have our strip ready for binding. Let's go to the machine. I have the walking foot on the machine because it helps keep all the fabric together. You want to go to the wrong side of your quilt. Place the binding strip along the edge, leaving a nice tail on it, because that will be useful when we're joining it together at the end. I'm using a darker blue thread for sewing this, just so that you can see it. If I was doing a proper quilt, I'd use a thread that matched your binding. We sew along to the edge and stop about 1/4 inch away from the edge and do a couple of backward stitches. Using a 1/4 inch seam, and then you fold your binding strip like that. Fold it down and pull out the bottom bit so that it doesn't get caught in the stitching. And stitch along the next edge. Again, fold your strip in. This is a way to make a nice mitered corner when we turn it over to the right side of the quilt. Just go a little way along this edge and do a little back stitch, and then we will join the binding strip together. That's where they're going to join. I want a little bit of extra fabric for the seam, so I just cut it off there. and then with a pin I can find the inner edges of the strip, pin it together where it joins, open it up, pin together the other edge, flatten it out so that you can then sew that together. Trim off the bits of thread. I'll just make that seam a little bit shorter, cutting off some spare fabric so that it's not too bulky, and then we can just finger press it open so that it lies flat. And then we can finish sewing this seam. The next thing to do is to turn your binding over to the right side of your quilt. Just pin it to start it off. And then we're going to sew the binding flat. When you get to the corner, you make a mitered corner by folding it in and over. And then I usually hold it down with my quick unpick while you sew into the corner. And then turn around to get to the next edge. Fold it down flat, turn the mitered bit over, hold it in place, I have used a running stitch round here, but you can use a decorative stitch or a zigzag stitch. I'm using a zigzag just to show you. We get to the last corner, fold it down flat, fold the miter corner over, pin that you used to start with. And there we are. And one more thing to show you before you go. If you're doing a real quilt, it'll obviously be bigger than a mini quilt, and you might have to join your strips together. To do that, you take your strip right side up, take another bit of strip right side down, put it together in the corner, and then you're going to sew a diagonal from that corner to that corner. You can draw a line if you can't do it by eye. Trim off the corner triangle. Then take it to the ironing board. Iron the seam open. Lovely. Come on, open up. So you've ironed your seam flat, and then you have your strip ironed in half like that. That will give you a nice seam going diagonally. I hope that's been useful. Thank you.